Welcome back to the Deep Six Wrestling Podcast. It is April 13th, 2022. We're back finally with another edition of the Deep Six Wrestling Podcast. We've had a little time off after WrestleMania week. There was just a lot of wrestling. We did a lot of podcasts. And there was no Impact review last week or AEW last week. We almost had an AEW review come out, but something came up at the last minute, literally right before Dynamite, so that did not happen. And there was no Impact last week because it was just basically a recap show of Multiverse of Matches, which we do have a review out on the podcast feed, and I'm fairly certain I put it up on our YouTube channel. If I am wrong, then I look silly. Our channel is loading right now, and I did not. I did put our review of Ring of Honor's Supercard of Honor up on YouTube, but the Multiverse of Matches review is exclusively on the podcast feed, so silly me. But if you want to listen to that, you can go back. It's only a few episodes ago, so be sure to do that. If you're new here, consider subscribing to the podcast. We cover AEW, Impact, New Japan, and occasionally WWE, and as well as some indie shows, as was seen during WrestleMania week, as we covered Zicky Dice's Outlandish Paradise 2, Trouble in Paradise, Bloodsport 8, briefly Joey Janela's Spring Break, WrestleMania, Supercard of Honor, Multiverse of Matches, so, you know, plenty of stuff to talk about. Follow us over on Twitter at Deep Six Wrestling without the G, and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. The links that you would need are in the episode description. This is a solo episode this week. It's just me, just Pat. So I'm going to try and just keep this one quick because I have some other recording I have to do, so I don't want to be taking this up too long. So we're going to skip any news, and we'll skip the AEW Dark results. We're just going to go head on into Dynamite because, my God, this show was packed to the gills. So just a lot to talk about. So as the show kicked off here, the commentary team just put over the fact that it's championship week for AEW. That's the branding that they've gone with. And we kick things off with CM Punk versus Penta Oscuro, Penta Dark. And so this was the last match that was made official. It was announced on Twitter yesterday. But the big thing coming for this was they got over the implication that this had championship implications with either man likely being able to, you know, carve out a title shot for them. This is a first-time matchup as well for Pentagon and CM Punk, so pretty cool. Huge reaction for Punk coming out here, and this show has been delayed so many times. It's the New Orleans show due to COVID. I believe this is like 2 years later than it was originally planned, so they were very happy for this pretty much the entire show. Once the bell rings, there was loud dueling chants for Cero Miedo and CM Punk. We kicked things off with the two trading blows, and the crowd was just very hype. Punk took control early. He went for his corner knee strike, but got cut off with a series of sling blades from Penta. When we came back from commercial, the two guys are on the top rope, and Punk it looked like he was going for a Hurricane Rana, and he just kind of slipped and fell off, and then started actively selling his knee. I thought this was legit, but I'm still not 100% sure based off the way the match went. But Penta got control from this, and he just targeted Punk's knee. The two fight, and eventually they went back up top in the other corner after, like a few minutes later after this. And Punk did end up landing a Hurricane Rana and then selling his knee. He was running slower, but he ended up hitting his running knee strike, and he got Penta up for the GTS, but Pentagon nailed him with elbows to get out. Penta gets him into the armbreaker position, but Punk counters with a schoolboy attitude adjustment, and that transitions into the Anaconda Vice, but Penta gets his leg on the rope for the rope break. Out on the apron, Penta goes for the Fear Factor, but Punk escapes and then goes for a pile driver of his own, but Penta gets out of it. We have a springboard clothesline from Punk to Penta. Then Punk calls for the go to sleep, and he gets him up for it. Penta blocks it, then goes for Fear Factor. Punk escapes, but Penta then gets him into the arm breaker position, and Punk rolls through. Penta rolls through. Then we get a big super kick from Penta to cut off Punk, and Pentagon then goes for a springboard move, and Punk catches him in the fireman's carry and nails him with the go to sleep for a wonderful finish. I thought it started a bit rough, but I'm not sure if it was a botch from Punk or if that was the spot, because again he ended up selling his knee for the rest of the match, but was still very able to wrestle. So I don't know if it was a legit botch or an injury, or if this was just the spot they were supposed to do with him selling his leg. But again, I thought they had a lot of great interactions here, some great counters for one another. The crowd was very into this, and it was a shame that Penta had to lose here, but Punk's being heated up for the world title scene, so it makes sense. And I don't think this is a loss that hurts Pentagon in the long run, since it's, again, to CM Punk, who is likely the next challenger for the AEW World Championship. But I thought it was a fun way to kick off the show. We go to a pre-taped thing at the airport with the JAS arriving in a private jet. Jericho says that this is the way sports entertainers travel, and he gets cut off by Eddie Kingston yelling, and the camera pans over, and Kingston and Proud and Powerful are in a car, and they drive away, but drop off Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Ange, and Angelo's shoes have been taken. This comes off the heels of BTE this week, where there was a reference to the other guys, and this is obviously another reference to the other guys, at least I'm assuming that's what it was, with Will Ferrell's character repeatedly getting his shoes taken away. I actually think him and Wahlberg both get them taken away. As a big other guys fan, I was a fan of the references this week. I guess the AEW guys all were watching it this week for some reason. But a little fun segment here to break things up. This sent us then into the AEW World Tag Team title match with reDRagon challenging Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. It's hard to not call them Jurassic Express, but they haven't been billed as that for a bit. This started in a different approach, I felt, to most Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus matches, where reDRagon started off by having control over Luchasaurus and got the heat on the big guy. After picture-in-picture, Jungle Boy was the legal man, and he ended up getting a hot tag to Luchasaurus. And we had Jim Ross calling him the Lizard Man, which, sure, why not? Luchasaurus takes it to Kyle and Bobby in the corners with a series of splashes, nails Kyle with a big release German suplex, and then a double clothesline to both guys, following that up with a double chokeslam, and then a standing moonsault to Kyle for a 2 count. Luchasaurus continues to be one of the best hot tags in wrestling. Jungle Boy then tags in and goes up top, and we get an assisted elbow drop for a 2 count. We have This Is Awesome chance. Kyle comes in off of a blind tag and hits a butterfly suplex to Jungle Boy. And Kyle manages to hold on, and him and Fish hit a big assisted move here for a 2 count, with Kyle transitioning into a submission. We have Kyle and Jungle Boy going up top to trade blows, and then we have this really good spot where Kyle gets sent down, and he ends up locking in a front chancery on Luchasaurus. And then Bobby Fish goes up top with Jungle Boy and hits an avalanche Falcon Arrow over Kyle and Luchasaurus, and goes for the pin, and it gets broken up last second when Luchasaurus is tossing himself and Kyle onto them, which is really good. Kyle and Luchasaurus trade strikes in the ring. Kyle gets the upper hand and then gets cut off by a super kick from Jungle Boy, and then Jungle Boy hits a crazy looking spinning DDT. Fish then eats the tail whip and then gets hit with the Thoracic Express, and Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus retain. I thought this was a wild tag match, and I thought this was without a doubt Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus' best title defense. reDRagon I thought looked great here. And I was expecting a title change, honestly. Like, when this first got announced, I was like, oh, yeah, it feels like it's time for Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus to probably move on from this and maybe get the Christian heel turn. But no, they retained. So I was kind of shocked about that. I'm not going to complain coming off of this match, but especially because we got something else after this. But yeah, I thought this was a great match. And in the post-match, while Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus are celebrating, Kyle takes out both of them with chair shots, then grabs one of the titles and throws it down the ground and flips off the crowd. As he's screaming, "This is bullshit" on the ramp, FTR's music hits, and the crowd comes alive, and we have a stare down between FTR and reDRagon. So that is very exciting. We get a brief recap from Rampage, going over Wheeler Yuta and Jon Moxley's wild main event match from Rampage. And we see the BCC, the Blackpool Combat Club, all backstage. William Regal, Jon Moxley, Bryan Danielson, and officially the ROH Pure Champion, Wheeler Yuta. We have an announcement that the three of them will be taking on the Gun Club on Rampage. Yuta's officially in the group. Danielson then puts over the Gun Club's record. Mox promises violence, and Yuta says that on Friday, the real work begins. We have a small little segment here with Jamie Hayter and Tony Storm backstage with Tony Schiavone, and we get the announcement that Tony Khan has signed Jamie Hayter versus Tony Storm for the first round of the Owen Hart tournament. No official date for when this match is, but it will be a first-round match. Jamie says that the two of them honed their crafts in Japan just like Owen Hart did, and Jamie's going to win this tournament and break Tony's face. Tony smirks and walks off as Jamie complains that Tony doesn't have anything to say. I thought this was a really, low-key, this was a very well-done segment for several reasons. It played up the history that both girls have in Stardom. It tied them both to Owen Hart, who, again, started his career and had a big breakout in Japan, just like them. It added some prestige to this tournament with us having, a genuine storyline for our first-round matchup. They're actively building to this Jamie Hayter-Tony Storm match weeks in advance. And we're also seeing good character work from Tony. I thought last week we got to hear her talk. She sounded confident. This week she didn't say anything. She just smirked it and walked off on Jamie, and Jamie was pissed. It shows that Tony knows how to push her buttons and that she knows her. So I thought this was genuinely really good stuff. It's probably going to get lost in the shuffle on everything that happened on this show, but I was a big fan of that. So really solid direction for the women's division on that point. MJF versus the captain, Shawn Dean. Shawn Dean has a jobber entrance, and MJF comes out here in a jacket, and he pretends to be caught in it as he tries to trick Shawn Dean. While gloating, we then cut to the big screen, and we see just a bunch of security laid out. MJF just plays it off, and he's celebrating next to the crowd, and he stops in front of a security guard who has a face mask on. The security guard takes the mask off, and it's Wardlow, and we have a huge pop here. Wardlow gets over the railing and chases MJF. Spears cuts him off and hits him with a chair. MJF then sends out an army of security guards, and I mean an army. This was 20, 30 guys that just sprint down the ramp at Wardlow, and he just runs through them before eventually they all have to hold him back. This was a great visual. MJF tries to come back, but he can't because of this wall of security that he ended up putting here. And then as Bryce Remsburg is about to count him out, as he hits 9, MJF grabs a mic and screams to Bryce, saying that he will triple his pay if he doesn't count him out. Bryce teases it for a second, and then he counts him out, and Shawn Dean wins via countout to a massive reaction. And we then see Wardlow backstage after he's been taken away by security. And he's beating up more security and looks into the camera and says he's not going to stop until MJF releases him from his contract and then slams the camera on the ground. I think everything they're doing with Wardlow is amazing. I think MJF and Shawn Spears are playing their parts great. Every segment with these guys is getting a monster reaction from crowds on a weekly basis. They've made a genuinely incredible homegrown babyface with Wardlow, and MJF and Spears both just continue to be great heels here. And then shout out to Shawn Dean. I'm glad the captain his consistency here with wins over MJF. So a big fan about this. I thought this was done so well. And while this wasn't like a blowaway match because there really was no match, it was very good. We have a vignette of Darby Allin skating through some city streets with funeral music playing, and he has challenged Andrade to a coffin match. We have a vignette from Malachi Black, who talks about Fuego del Sol's hopes and dreams, cutting open his own throat to reveal a dark abyss of razor blades. Notes that maybe one day Fuego will appreciate that, but for now all he does is appreciate his fan base. The house will take Fuego's brightest part of his heart and they will kill it. And he says that he may be alone tonight, but it's because he wants Fuego to be afraid of the shadows. This felt like a Bray Wyatt promo where Malachi said a lot of stuff that I didn't really understand what he's trying to talk about here. But I like the ending where it's just a black screen and Malachi saying, I want you to be afraid of the shadows. I thought that was solid. But, in the same vein that like I like Bray Wyatt's promos, I like hearing Malachi talk. They're just very enthralling speakers. So I didn't really have an issue with it. The Jericho Appreciation Society versus Eddie Kingston, Santana, and Ortiz. Jericho and Santana start. Jericho just teases him a bit before Santana just punches him in the face. Things break down with the face team just beating down the JAS all ringside. Ortiz eventually tags in, and Jericho then takes control of the match as Eddie Kingston is just like beating up Daniel Garcia at ringside. Coming back after commercial break, Ortiz tags in Eddie Kingston, and he gets a big hot tag. We had Eddie Kingston in a thump shirt, which was a reference to the Junkyard Dog, which commentary mentioned. And Eddie just ran through the JAS and then eventually tagged in Santana, who then hit the Three Amigos and a frog splash for a big reaction. We had a cool spinning Uranage, however you pronounce it, from Santana, followed up by a second rope leg drop for Ortiz for a 2 count. We had Kingston taking out Jake Hager with a kick on the apron and then running off the ropes and hitting a suicide dive. That was pretty cool. Ortiz literally picked up Daniel Garcia at one point and just threw him at Jericho and then dove out of the ring onto 2.0, who had made their way to ringside. Kingston got to light up Daniel Garcia with some strikes and followed up with an exploder suplex, but then Jericho nailed him in the back with Floyd, the bat, while Aubrey wasn't looking, and Daniel Garcia pins Eddie Kingston. After the match, the Jericho Appreciation Society then beat down all the baby faces, and they stand tall. I thought this is a good match. The feud is still heated. The crowds are into it, but I think something needs to happen soon. The baby faces are outnumbered, and they're showing that they have fire and they're confident, but they can't take on these 5 guys by themselves. So it just feels like they need 2 other people to even the odds. I don't really know who you get. I would have said the Briscoes would have made sense if they came in, but it seems like they're going to Impact. So I have no clue. I don't know who they get to help or how they end up overcoming these odds, but that was that. It just feels like more of the same with Eddie and Proud and Powerful just getting beaten down, but nice to see Daniel Garcia get a big win here. We go backstage. MJF, Shawn Spears, and Mark Sterling are there, and MJF freaks out about getting counted out earlier in the night. He says he doesn't need the fans' sympathy because he has money. Wardlow's signed with MJF, and that means he can book him in any match he wants, and he's going to slaughter him. And Jose comes in, and MJF hands him a stack of cash, and he says the best way to slaughter the pig is with a butcher. And the butcher comes into frame and growls, so we're going to be getting the butcher versus Wardlow. And that sounds like a pretty good hoss fight, not going to lie. We go to Marina Shafir versus Skye Blue. We see Jade and Mark watching in the back. We then see the baddie section, and commentary notes that Red Velvet's there, as well as Kiera Hogan. And commentary even indicates what's going on here. This was just a squash. Marina just ran through Skye with submissions and some judo throws. And after the match, she mocked the baddie section and blew them a kiss. This is a match. It wasn't a very exciting debut for Marina. The crowd was literally just sitting there silently. It was fine for what they were doing, but it should have been more. I think you probably could have done something where post-match Red Velvet and Kiera Hogan jumped the barricade. You could have had Jade come out to confront Marina. We could have had a Jade promo, just really anything to make this stand out more. This really just feels like something that was lost in the shuffle on this show. I'm happy that it's... So, I'm a bit confused on this because Marina, I'm pretty sure, is a heel. Jade is, I'm pretty sure, still a heel, but Jade, cut a pretty babyface promo last week saying that, we don't need more former MMA fighters in wrestling. And, yeah, I don't know, Red Velvet's been a face for a while, so if they're going to turn her, sure. I mean, she didn't get a good reaction on Rampage against Willow Nightingale, so maybe. I'm happy that Kiera Hogan finally seems to have something here, even if it's just as backup for Jade. I think her and Red Velvet could be a fun tag team, and that would bring our total up to, that would give us Red Velvet and Kiera Hogan, Ty J, Penelope Ford, and the Bunny. So it's three official teams for women. And then Britt, Jamie, and Rebel, so 4, I guess. So yeah, whatever you want to do with that information, do it. But nice to see some more people aligning with each other, as I feel that's something that, the women's division kind of lacks that the men have, is people, teaming up. So yeah. After this, we see a little vignette here with... we had a vignette somewhere here with... this was it. With Tony Nese, Hook, and Danhausen. Tony Nese is officially Mark Sterling's new client, and Tony Nese versus Hook is made for Dynamite, and that is Hook's Dynamite debut. And we continue Danhausen being tied with Hook. Very interested in what the direction is with Danhausen and Hook. If it's going to be a match, if they're going to end up teaming up or something, I do not know. We have a backstage promo, very brief here, with America Top Team. Dan Lambert says that the most annoying couple in AEW history is still here, with Ty Conti and Sammy Guevara, after Ethan Page makes a reference to Cody leaving. Scorpio Sky says that the only thing getting bigger in Texas this week is his winning streak, and Skye is going to put the TNT Championship on the line against Sammy Guevara at Battle of the Belts 2, after, apparently, Sammy Guevara politicked with Tony Khan. I'm hoping Scorpio Sky retains. I'm hoping. Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs versus Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee. This was wild. This was my match of the night. This was nuts. We had a huge reaction for Ricky Starks coming out here in his hometown, and Starks was very emotional. You could see it on his face. Hobbs starts the match, but then tags Ricky in for a huge pop from the crowd. Starks hops onto the top rope, and he does a little tightrope walk for the crowd as they light up for him. Swerve takes control, and Keith gets tagged in, but at this point, the crowd is just chanting for Ricky. Keith got a good reaction when he came out, but this crowd was very pro Ricky. They needed a Ricky Starks win here. And in just an insane move here, we had Swerve. So Keith gets tagged in, but Swerve then tags back in and goes up to the top rope. And Ricky and Hobbs are on the floor, and we have Swerve launch himself off of Keith Lee's chest for a moonsault that gets a huge reaction from the crowd, and he just dances to celebrate. It looked so good. When we come back from commercial break, Keith lifts up Ricky Starks and just tosses him at Will Hobbs. We have Lee and Swerve double teaming Ricky, and they get a near fall. Swerve goes for a half and half suplex, but it gets blocked. Shane then takes out Hobbs on the apron, gets back in the ring, but gets caught with a huge spear from Ricky. We have a flipping DDT. This looked kind of like a destroyer, but different. It looked really nice. For a near fall on Swerve from Starks. Ricky and Shane go up top. Keith Lee tags in, and then Swerve gets him up in the gets Starks up in the fireman's carry position and drops him into the ring, and Keith just takes out Starks with a pounce for a 2 count. We get a big stare down with Keith and Hobbs. That got a big reaction from the crowd. Starks eventually tagged in Hobbs, and then we had Taz coming down to ringside, and this is where I got worried. I felt like the way Taz came out, he looked so serious, and I was like, fuck. They're going to have Taz turn on his guys, and we're getting a swerve here. I don't know why. It just felt so it just felt like such a WWE thing to do, where it's like, oh, we're in like this hometown, and this crowd desperately wanted to see Ricky Starks win, so we're going to do something crazy, and we're going to do an angle. We're going to get the heat. But that was not the case. Ricky eventually goes for Rochambeau, but it gets countered. Hobbs gets sent face first in the ring post. Starks goes for Tornado DDT, but Keith holds on and just catches him. Starks then goes back up top and hits a diving spear onto Keith Lee, taking him down. Hobbs then comes into a big splash into the corner on Swerve. Lee gets Hobbs onto his shoulders, but Hobbs gets off. And as Keith Lee's running the ropes, Taz trips him, and Hobbs managed to get him up for a power slam and pins Keith Lee. This was shocking. I did not expect to see... I kind of just expected Swerve and Keith to win here, but that was before I knew that this was Starks' hometown and hearing this crowd react the way they did. But Swerve had just lost to Starks, so I was like, oh, they're probably going to get their win back here. No. So Hobbs got to pin Keith Lee. This felt like a big deal. But coming out of this, and we had a big celebration after the match with Starks, Hobbs, and Taz. So that was really cool to see. But coming out of this, I thought this was fantastic, and I thought that all four guys made very strong claims at being main event talents in AEW. This was great across the board. I think that they have two very special guys with Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs as your two AEW guys, and Strickland and Swerve. I'll just call him Swerve. It's easier to say Swerve than Strickland. Swerve and Lee, I think, are both just fucking great, and I was so glad to see them both get to shine here against Ricky and Powerhouse. So I thought this was fantastic. And yeah, this was my match of the show. The opening match, the tag team match, and then the main event were all really great. So no complaints. I thought this was great. We then this was just fucking insanity, the amount of announcements that we got immediately following this match. So AEW Rampage, we have the Gun Club versus the Blackpool Combat Club in a 6-man match. New Owen Hart qualifier for the women, Ruby Soho, makes a return to TV, taking on Robin Renegade, and Hangman Page versus Adam Cole for the AEW World Championship in a Texas death match. Rampage is at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, 4 o'clock Pacific Time, because of the NBA. AEW Battle of the Belts 2, we have the full card now. Thunder Rosa versus Nyla Rose for the AEW Women's World Championship. Scorpio Sky versus Sammy Guevara for the AEW TNT Championship. And in a shocking announcement here, the ROH World Championship is on the line as Jonathan Gresham defends against Dalton Castle. That has me over the moon excited. I think Thunder Rosa and Nyla Rose, fingers crossed, knock on wood, should be good. Scorpio versus Sammy, I don't really know how to feel. Gresham versus Dalton Castle should be fantastic. If I'm choosing something to main event with, I don't think that, I think Scorpio and Sammy probably main event, but I personally would do Gresham and get Castle in the main event. So, yeah. AEW Dynamite for next week. Hook versus Tony Nese in Hook's Dynamite debut. 2 Owen Hart qualifiers. This is in Pittsburgh. So Britt Baker makes her return, taking on Danielle Camella, the former Vanessa Bourne from NXT, for those who remember her. She used to be Aaliyah's partner once upon a time. And she's been on AEW Dark a few times, so we'll see. And the men's Owen Hart qualifier, Jungle Boy, takes on Kyle O'Reilly. I'm going to guess Kyle wins. If I was them, I would have Kyle win, personally. And presumably next week's main event, Andrade versus Darby Allin in the second ever coffin match for AEW, following up Darby Allin versus Ethan Page from last summer, which was incredible. And Tony Khan has another huge announcement. I think there's a number of things that this could be. We had the report from Sean Ross Sapp about the AEW video game. I think you could see something like that with a trailer maybe. We know that Tony had some backup plan if the ROH acquisition didn't go through, with a lot of people assuming that it was a streaming deal. It could be that. WWE just announced a big UK stadium show. They could easily announce a UK tour to try and capitalize off the hype. And then obviously, I think my personal favorite, for what I think it would be, is coming off the news that, AEW Dynamite and AEW Rampage will now be streaming on New Japan World for fans in Japan. I kind of think that they might announce the long talked about, long awaited AEW New Japan show. It just feels like the timing is there. Like, Windy City Riots this weekend, and we have Moxley versus Ospreay in the main event. We have a bunch of New Japan talents coming to the U.S. For a bunch of shows, with Capital Collision coming up, and they just announced another Philly show. Like Okada's coming over, Ishii's coming over, Tanahashi's coming over. What else? And yeah, like Japan's borders seem to be opening up, and Japan's getting visas for wrestlers. So I just feel like it's a possibility that like now more than ever we could see that happen. So yeah. Oh, and speaking of New Japan Pro Wrestling, I just saw that they announced matches for the Philly thing I was talking about on May 15th. Chris Dickinson, who announced that he is signed with New Japan officially, is taking on Hiroshi Tanahashi. Minoru Suzuki faces Tony Deppen. Yuya Uemura faces Killer Cross, unfortunately. And Alex Coughlin, Kevin Knight, and the DKC face off against Team Filthy. So, there you go. Anyways, main event time. The ROH Television Championship is on the line as Minoru Suzuki, the man who won the belt from Rhett Titus at Supercard of Honor, defends against Samoa Joe in a dream match. The first thing I wrote here was, I still cannot believe this is a thing. Holy shit. Samoa Joe was NXT champion just several months ago after re-signing with WWE after being released the first time. So this was just wild to see. Like, I had a huge smile on my face as both these guys came out. This was just... What a, like, experience to see this. Kicking things off here, Joe and Suzuki lit each other up with strikes to start off. Within minutes, both guys' chests were just bright red. Joe gets control through picture-in-picture, and we have Joe nailing a series of headbutts as we come back from commercial. Sanjay Dutt and Jay Lethal are at ringside with a present. And back from commercial, Suzuki comes back and takes Joe down with a big running kick. We have another big chop exchange from the two guys. They're just trying to cave in each other's chest here. Suzuki gets the sleeper locked in, but Joe comes through with a side slam. Eventually they get over to the corner, and Joe tries to get Suzuki up for the muscle buster, but Suzuki locks in a submission. Joe fights through and nails the muscle buster, and Samoa Joe becomes the new ROH Television Champion. Yeah, so they had advertised that there was going to be an overrun tonight, and they did go over by a few minutes, not much. But, like, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this main event. Suzuki works a very specific style of match in his old age. It's mainly just, like, lots of striking and submission holds. I thought him and Joe just, went to war here for, like, the 10, 15 minutes they had. And, yeah, Joe winning the title made a lot of sense compared to Suzuki. It was cool to see Suzuki, get the title, and he won his first American championship. So that's an accolade that he can have forever. But this was Joe's to win, and post-match it made even more sense. After the match, Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt jump the barricade, get a microphone, and they have the present ready for Samoa Joe, and Lethal takes the top off the box, and it's just his middle finger. And this is where things go off the rail. The lights go out, and my first assumption is, oh fuck, we're getting a big debut. Who's like a name that has been talked about recently and everybody expects in AEW? It's like, fuck, we're going to get like Claudio Castagnoli. The lights go out and come on, and we have a giant former NBA basketball player, Satnam Singh. I don't know how to pronounce his first name. I'm sorry if I butchered that. And him, Jay Lethal, and Sanjay Dutt just beat down Samoa Joe, and Lethal lands the lethal injection on Samoa Joe. Takes the ROH TV title, puts it on Joe's chest, and they stand over him as the show goes off the air. I thought this was a very lame ending for Dynamite. Just in the way it was executed, like, they should not have shut the lights out for this guy. Like, when you do that, you're expecting it to be something, like, big. Like, even if it was, like, the House of Black, it would have made, like, a big deal. Because it would have been like, oh, shit. But, no, it's just this former NBA player who we've never seen on TV, who we've never seen wrestle before. So sure. If again, the beatdown itself was perfectly fine. It was just a standard beatdown and the debut of this big guy. It was just the way they executed it with the lights out, lights on thing that I think is what is souring most people. But it is what it is. I really like Lethal and Sanjay together as a heel duo. So, yeah, I don't really, I don't have as big of an issue with this as some do. There is a clip going around of the crowd chanting, "Who are you?" after the show went off the air, and people are making it out like this is some huge, huge deal. And that's not the case in my eyes. Again, this man has never wrestled before, has never appeared on wrestling programming, and what else were they supposed to chant at him? Yeah. Anyway, that was Dynamite. I thought this was a very strong show, match-wise. The main event for the ROH title with Joe and Suzuki, Starks and Hobbs versus Swerve and Keith Lee was phenomenal. The six-man with JAS versus Kingston, Santana, and Ortiz was good. Marina's debut, not so great, and I think they could have executed it better, but oh well, I guess. The Wardlow, MJF, Shawn Dean, Shawn Spears thing, fantastic. I loved what they did with Jamie Hayter and Tony Storm on the show. The World Tag Team title match with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus versus reDRagon was great, and Penta versus Punk was a great opener. So across the board, again, I thought this was a very strong show. Not like the best episode by any means, but for the most part, they nailed pretty much everything that they set out to do, aside from a few minor hiccups, I'd say. In terms of what else to talk about, I don't really think there's anything. Yeah. So that was AEW. We'll be back next week with another review for AEW Dynamite. We'll probably have something out this weekend for Windy City Riot and maybe Battle of the Belts as a joint review. Impact Wrestling is back tomorrow, so Ryan and me, or just Ryan, will have a review out because I believe Angelo's busy for Impact Wrestling as they continue towards Rebellion, which is next weekend, which we will have a review out for because it's a big pay-per-view, so we'll be doing that. But yeah, if you're not subscribed to the podcast, be sure to do so. Follow us over on Twitter at Deep Six Wrestling without the G, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The links to everything you need are in the episode description. Also, if you listen to this whole episode and you're almost 40 minutes in, please consider leaving a rating for us on Apple or Spotify, since Spotify now has podcast ratings. It would mean the world to us, and it would help us get more viewers, listeners, whatever you want to say. So please consider doing that. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, leave a like. Leave a comment. Tell me what you thought about AEW Dynamite this week. Just, interact with us. That's what we want. So, until next time, adios, and thank you for listening.